And also Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson. We have State Senator Vince Hughes, Representative Elizabeth Fiedler. We are expecting Reverend Wayne Weathers of the Black Clergy of Philadelphia. And we also have from the District Attorney's Office Election Task Force, Andrew Welbrock, and Sergeant Jerry Rocks, Brian Collins, who's also working on the task force, is here as well. I'm going to make a few remarks, and then I will pass the microphone along to people who are here. I have good news, and the good news is that people have been voting in Philadelphia now for weeks. We have had a larger election task force than ever in the history of the DA's office. We have been fielding calls during that time. But the good news is there have not been that many calls, and they have not been that serious. So far, people are able to vote. So far, their voice is being heard, and so far, we seem to be on track for what may be, both locally and nationally, the biggest turnout in the history of the United States, and that's quite an accomplishment in the middle of a national pandemic. We are also making sure that if it changes, and if there are some challenges tomorrow, that we are all together and we are all ready to deal with any of those challenges. Let us understand, every vote needs to be counted. A vote for Donald Trump needs to be counted. A vote for Joe Biden needs to be counted. A vote for anyone needs to be counted. That is how our system works. And then, after they are counted, we will figure out who won. But in order to make sure that is the case, we have to anticipate in this unprecedented year some of the problems that we might face. And we have seen some issues in other states. And we have seen some warning signs over the last couple of days. Here's my bottom line. If you have not voted already, then get out there and vote tomorrow. If you are holding a mail-in ballot that you can hand carry to a place where it will be accepted, you can do that as well. But I can tell you that when I voted a couple weeks ago, it was smooth, it was seamless, it was a beautiful thing. I got in line with 300 people, and my vote was delivered within 21 minutes. We are hopeful that even with all these challenges, tomorrow is going to be a very smooth and a very seamless day. But we are also vigilant to make sure that anyone who attempts to steal votes from the residents of Philadelphia is going to have their consequence. And let me be clear what that consequence is. The Philadelphia District Attorney's Office has prepared a detailed memo for our law enforcement partners, including the police department, specifying the many different crimes that are specialized and may occur on election day when people try to intimidate votes, when they try to block people from voting, when they try to engage in other sorts of coercive behavior, or as the law says, behavior that overawes voters, and we are prepared to enforce them. So if you are planning in Philadelphia to try to steal our votes, I got something for you. I got a jail cell, I have charging papers, and when we get to the end of the process, I have a Philadelphia jury that you can tell why you thought it was okay to steal their votes. This is the cradle of liberty, and nobody is going to steal that from us tomorrow or any other day. Having said that, I would like to pass the microphone to our police commissioner, with whom we've had a very collaborative and positive relationship, and we look forward to working together tomorrow. Commissioner?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, District Attorney Krasner. I'll keep my remarks brief because there are a lot of folks behind me that have very important information to share with you. I want to make it known that the Philadelphia Police Department stands ready to assist our fellow stakeholders in ensuring a safe and fair election experience for all Philadelphians. To that end, we are working closely with the city commissioners, the managing director's office, and others to ensure all lines of communication are open here. Not only before, but during and after Election Day. Maintaining open lines of communication, including sharing of intelligence, is a key to election preparedness. For the PPD, that means coordinating very closely with the Delaware Valley Intelligence Center, or DIVIC, the District Attorney's Election Task Force, the State Police, the FBI, and the other federal partners that are gathering security data so we can be ready in advance of potential efforts to disrupt an orderly and safe election. We have also been involved in training sessions coordinated by the Office of Emergency Management to hear from experts with national organizations that are monitoring how other cities are preparing for Election Day. In addition, we have been working closely with the DAO, the District Attorney's Office, in advance of the election to ensure smooth communication on Election Day. The PPD is a member of the DA's Election Day Task Force, and our command staff will have direct and constant communication with that task force tomorrow. All of our patrol districts will have roving teams of police officers specifically assigned to quickly respond to calls for service, or calls for assistance rather, at polling locations. These officers will be wearing body-worn cameras and will also be joined by a police department supervisor when responding. In addition, the DAO's office is providing a number of ADAs, or assistant district attorneys, to each patrol division. These ADAs will join with the PPD detective in their division of assignment and will also respond to any calls for police service at polling locations. What this means is that there will be a full complement of law enforcement expertise on scene when responding to these calls. It is imperative that voters and election workers are safe and protected at the polls tomorrow. Of course, we have worked to ensure that we have ample resources during and after Election Day. We have made scheduling changes to ensure sufficient personnel are available throughout the entire city of Philadelphia and not just Center City, in the event of any demonstrations. This includes deployments to enhance the protection of infrastructure that is critical to the election and post-election tabulation of ballots. It also means ensuring there is sufficient staff to cover other non-election calls for service during this time period. As always, public safety remains the #1 priority of the Philadelphia Police Department. We're looking forward to joining the community in a safe and free Election Day tomorrow. Thank you for having me, and now I'll turn it over to Mayor Jim Kinley.
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw. Tomorrow's election in Philadelphia really comes down to some very simple concepts. The first is fairness. The city's election planning process and procedures favor no party or group. Our bipartisan city commissioners have stressed that at every step. This will truly be a democratic election, and no voter should face intimidation or coercion by anyone. Second is integrity. The voting machines that are in place for November 3rd have been tested now in 2 prior elections. This means that well-trained staff and polling place volunteers have the experience to ensure the machines are set up correctly and will be operating properly. Next, this election will be accessible. We're opening 718 voting locations, more than triple the number of polling places available in the June primary. That means that nearly 85% of voters will be voting in the polling location that they have used in their neighborhood for years. All information is offered in both English and Spanish. Interpretation services are provided at every polling place. COVID safety precautions are in place, and all locations are accessible for people with disabilities. Finally, this election will be about accurate results. Our election officials will be working tirelessly to count and double-check every ballot. And the commissioners have set up a tremendous secure facility at the convention center to process and count mail-in and absentee ballots, more than 400,000 at last count. And I want to add another thing. All Philadelphia voters can contribute. Patience. We expect long lines to polls. Not only will turnout be strong, but everyone will be taking their time before locking in their vote. And the lines will seem even longer because of the need for everyone to stay 6 feet apart. So on Election Day, please be patient. The people working your voting station and waiting with you are your neighbors. They are doing their best. And remember that so long as you are in line by the time the polls close at 8 p.m., you will be permitted to vote. After the polls close, we will continue to need your patience. Never in the history of this city have so many people voted by mail. By law, staffers are not allowed to start opening and counting these ballots until Election Day itself. That means getting a tally of mail-in ballots will easily take a few days. So again, please be patient. We know all Philadelphians have been through a difficult year, and we know the importance of this election. So I close with this reminder. If you should encounter frustrating or difficult situations on Election Day, let your inner strength guide you. Stay calm, stay respectful, stay above the fray. With your help, we are confident that our city will shine as an example of how to run an election right. Thank you. And I'd like to call now Lisa Deely, the chairman of our city commission.
Good morning. Thank you. Our staff at the City Commissioner's Office has been working tirelessly in preparation for a day that many Philadelphians have been greatly anticipating. If you're voting in person tomorrow, make a plan ahead of time. Visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com to confirm your polling location. Wear a mask and bring PPE if you forget. We will provide it for you. And be prepared for a modest wait time due to physical distancing requirements. Elections in Philadelphia have historically been conducted with very few problems, and we do not expect tomorrow to be any different. At the same time, we are aware of heightened concerns due to the pandemic and other recent events. Our staff are trained and ready to answer your questions, and will be communicating with the police and the district attorney throughout the day, should any issues arise. If you have questions about where to vote or how to vote, visit our website at PhiladelphiaVotes.com or call the Pennsylvania Election Hotline at 877-868-3772. Thank you. I will now call on Senator Drew Street.
Good morning. So many Philadelphians and people across Pennsylvania have been waiting for the day for Election Day. They've been waiting for an opportunity to have their voices expressed. Waiting because of concerns about health care. Waiting because of concerns about fairness. Waiting because they understand that this process, our democracy, is dependent upon us engaging. We've had litigation as to whether we can have early voting stations and drop boxes. And now we're back to our traditional election day. A day when in the city of brotherly love, the place where American democracy was born, people will now have a chance to have something to say. We know that the entire country is watching Pennsylvania. We know that in Philadelphia, the results of this election could be greatly impacted by whether people participate. And what we're saying now is that you're going to have a fair chance to be heard. You're going to have a fair chance to go to the polls. You should not be concerned about the things that you've heard on national media about there being a problem if you arrive at the polls. You shouldn't be concerned about whether your vote will be counted. You should not be concerned about whether your polling place will be open. The vast and overwhelming majority of polling places have been restored back to the place that they were pre-COVID with some modifications for safety. The provisions have been made to make sure people can safely go in. And provisions will be made for all the votes to be counted, even if they're not all able to be announced and certified on election night. It's now up to the members of the public to get out and become engaged, to cast your vote, and understand that for all the talk of the Electoral College disempowering people around the country, we are super empowered and there are more people. Our votes are more important than perhaps any other votes in the country because what happens in Pennsylvania could decide this election. So this is not the forum to tell you how to vote. But this is the forum to remind each and every Pennsylvanian that our votes could really determine the direction of this country and in so doing this planet. And so everybody has an opportunity to be a hero. You can be a hero by doing a simple thing. Go to the polls, bring your PPE, be patient, and make sure you cast your vote. I now will introduce Councilman Mark Spiller. Okay, then I'm going to introduce my chairman, Senator Vincent Hughes.
Well, his haircut is close to mine, but not quite. Let me thank everybody for gathering here, and I think this message is really directed at the citizens of Philadelphia, the citizens of the state, and the citizens of the world, but most importantly, the citizens of Philadelphia. All the folks that you see gathered here have been working tirelessly to make sure that in the birthplace of democracy, democracy is realized tomorrow and the days afterward. And I think we need to take a minute to really commend the Commissioner's office, the city, and everybody gathered here for doing some incredible work in very difficult environments. So we thank you, Mr. Deal, and the entire team, and everybody, and everyone gathered here. There's been an unprecedented amount of coordination, unprecedented amount of cooperation, incredible new technology, everybody fully engaged. And the message I think right now is to the citizens of Philadelphia, specifically, feel comfortable about going to vote tomorrow. If you can, if you have your vote by mail ballot, drop it off at a satellite election office, drop it off at a drop box, bring it in, and make sure that it's recorded. An unprecedented amount of people in this city of Philadelphia have participated in democracy so far. So as we have some levels of tension, I, on the other hand, have some levels of joy and excitement, Councilman Kenyatta Johnson, because I'm very excited about so many people deciding to participate in our democracy. That's a great thing. We just have to finish the job. For people in Philadelphia, understand there's an unprecedented amount of cooperation, a huge amount of precautions in place. We've grown the polling places from where they were in the primary to almost 700 and I believe 19 polling locations. See, I'm reading that? Okay. And so democracy will be available for folks tomorrow. We just need to go ahead and seize it. Just go ahead and seize it. The protections will be in place. We will make sure that no one gets in the way, as the district attorney said, no one gets in the way of you voters pursuing your democracy, pursuing your constitutional right to choose who you want to represent you at every level of government. The systems are in place for that. I am proud to be part of a program and an operation that has been very coordinated, very focused, and prepared for probably the greatest and most important election in all of our lifetime. The citizens of Philadelphia need to feel comfortable. The sun will be shining tomorrow. It'll even be a little bit warmer tomorrow than it will be today. I did some work on that, Mr. Mayor, okay? All right? It'll be a little bit warmer tomorrow than it will be today. This is our chance in the birthplace of democracy to seize democracy and to achieve democracy. No voter who wants to vote will be stopped or prevented from voting. Every voter in this city will have the opportunity to vote. If they choose to do so, it will be protected and it will be secured. And that's a great thing. That's a great thing. And we all need to celebrate that in this moment. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over now to City Council Member Squilla. Council Member Squilla?
He's
Right there.
He's running up.
For the grand entrance. Give him a round of applause. Great job, all right? Good job, all right? It's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Senator. And I think the message that you've been hearing is how important it is to know that your vote will be counted in this election. This is the most important election of the city of Philadelphia and this country. This country was built on the ability for people to have freedom to vote. That is an important gesture that we're here in the city of Philadelphia are guaranteeing. Not only the right to vote, but also that your vote will be counted. We have a great operation down at the convention center. If you haven't seen it, it's amazing to look at the place, the city, what the city has put together to make sure all the mail-in ballots will be counted. We know as the city of Philadelphia what it takes to make sure people feel safe. Now is the time for you as residents of the city of Philadelphia to go out there and cast your vote. You know you can do it freely, you can do it independently, and you can do it safely. And that vote will be counted, and this election will be counted for the city residents of the city of Philadelphia and for all the residents of this great country. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Kenyatta Johnson, councilman for the 2nd Councilmanic District, in which we are hosting this press conference. And I want to start off by thanking our district attorney, Larry Krasner, for his leadership in making sure that this issue is first and foremost a priority during this election. I also want to acknowledge our commissioner, Lisa Dealey, who I've been working with her staff consistently over this last month and as late as last night and early as this morning to make sure that all of our election boards are staffed properly and making sure that our committee people are well equipped. This morning, as I was working with my team as a ward leader, putting together our GOTV package, I didn't think I was going to have the opportunity to participate in this press conference because we wanted to make sure that we were well ready and prepared for the shenanigans for tomorrow. And then I began to think about how the eyes of the world are looking at the state of Pennsylvania. I begin to think about how the eyes of the world are looking at the city of Philadelphia as it relates to this upcoming election tomorrow. Then I began thinking about, Senator Hughes, of how at one point in time in history, as African Americans, we were viewed as 3/5 of a man and didn't have the opportunity to vote. And I began thinking about how my great-great-grandmother and great-great-grandfather fought to make sure that we had a Civil Rights Act so we could vote in a Voting Rights Act. And I began to think about how, yes, we have a robust mail-in ballot process, but one of the news outlets did a report based upon how in certain low-income neighborhoods, predominantly black and brown people, there was not a high level of turn-in of mail-in ballots, which means those individuals will be attending their polls tomorrow to cast their ballots. I began thinking about how Bush versus Gore, during an election process, Sharif, where they sent thousands of lawyers into our neighborhoods to intimidate voters coming to vote. I thought about how last evening, in some parts of the country, you had certain political campaign supporters riding in caravans in neighborhoods in which they knew the residents of those neighborhoods were not going to vote for their candidate as an act of intimidation. And so I thank our district attorney, I thank our police commissioner, I thank our mayor for making sure that we're out here today to protect the rights of our citizens, to protect the rights of our residents, and to protect the rights of the people here in the city of Philadelphia to cast their votes tomorrow without any acts of intimidation, without any acts of suppression. And we'll be outside first thing tomorrow from 6 a.m. to the polls close, tomorrow at 8 p.m. to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to cast their ballot without any acts of intimidation and suppression. Thank you very much. Thank you, Larry, for having me.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm State Representative Elizabeth Fiedler. Glad to be here with you today. As you heard from some of my colleagues, we talk a lot about Philadelphia as the birthplace of democracy. And I think it's important to remember and to name that democracy didn't spring forth fully formed from the minds of the men who gathered here in Philadelphia. What was born then, regardless of its ideals, was an exclusive system, which empowered only a few. Every day since then, people have worked tirelessly, and many have given their lives to expand the rights, protections, freedoms that should have been guaranteed equally to all of us from the beginning. That is why we are so incredibly committed as elected officials to ensuring that every single person who wants to vote has the right to, and to ensuring that every single vote is counted. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has been working and will be working an incredibly long day tomorrow and in the evenings and days afterwards to ensure that every single vote is counted. Some of you have already cast your vote because we've made it easier for people to vote by mail. And to you we say, thank you. To everyone who may have a mail-in ballot sitting on their table right now, as you've heard, please turn it in today. And to everyone who is planning to go and vote tomorrow, bring your mask, bring your patience, and remember that your polling place opens early, so go as soon as you can. As you've heard, intimidation is not welcome in Philadelphia and not at our polling places. If you feel unsafe, if you feel like you are the target of intimidation, you should report it. Because to all of us, your voice matters and your vote matters. And then, it is up to all of us to make sure your votes count. I've heard from a lot of people who are feeling nervous, anxious, scared about tomorrow. They've read the headlines, or maybe scrolling on their phone as they're watching this. And to those folks who have not voted yet, I would say, take a deep breath, make a voting plan, and then have some more patience as everyone here and others work hard to make sure that your vote is